Pac-4 now, and it might be the Pac-2 because I think Stanford and there was another school, I think Cal maybe, that they're talking about ACC. There's so much going on, and it looked like San Diego State was in a great position to go to the Pac-12 and be in the same conference as Oregon and Washington and Stanford. Like they were right there. But this all happened, obviously, the instability of maybe the TV deal with the Pac-12. And now San Diego State maybe just remains in the Mountain West. Maybe there's a merger with the remaining Pac-12 teams and the Mountain West Conference, the best conferences, the best schools there, or maybe it's just the entire conference and they can add Gonzaga for basketball or whatever. We'll see what happens. But do you think San Diego State's disappointed by this, or do you think maybe they feel like they're in a good spot because they're going to be one of the premier programs that could end up being in this maybe merger if the Pac-12 and Mountain West decide to do that?
I mean, how could you not be disappointed?
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to be. If George Kliavkoff had gotten that media rights deal done this spring, well ahead of the June 30th deadline, they invite the Aztecs. Hopefully, it's a good enough deal that it keeps everybody together, and they're in the Pac-12 like they've always wanted to be. They're suddenly a power conference program, and all the money and opportunity and exposure that comes with it, they get to benefit from. And now they're in this situation where, you're looking at like Mountain West Plus,
Yeah.
From listening to smart people. Like I was just listening to Brett McMurphy did an interview with a radio station in Boise, and he was talking about how like Stanford's not going to want to be in a conference with San Jose State and Fresno, those types of, because of the academic prestige and all that. And so that's where they probably feel like they align more with the ACC, with schools like UVA and Duke and UNC and all that. Does that make sense? Obviously, you're talking bi-coastal, travels like crazy, and also Stanford and Cal, like they've got a lot from like Olympic sports, but from the revenue makers, they haven't done a whole lot, of late. And ACC's stuck in a media rights deal through like 2036 that everybody's mad about. And so are they going to want to like run the risk of having to share some of their money with these programs that, aren't going to drive a whole lot in terms of football and basketball, and their attendance is way down. So it's just a lousy situation. And yeah, you just feel like whatever the potential best outcome was for the Aztecs just gets knocked down a peg little by little by little. And, like, could you bring in Gonzaga? St. Mary's is right there too. Then you hear like Big 12 is, thinking about Gonzaga and UConn for basketball only. And, if you bring in Gonzaga obviously doesn't do anything for your football, but like you could say, okay, we got a pretty decent basketball conference. It's frustrating. I'm a little bit tired of talking about it because it's just been what if for like 14 months now. And we don't know anything more now than we did before, other than who's not going to be involved, those Pac-12 programs that jumped. And then you see, Brett McMurphy and somebody from The Athletic today saying like the Big 12 is not interested in San Diego State. And like, gosh, like that would have been such a great outcome. And for whatever reason, and maybe it's just because they've gone after and brought in these Pac-12 programs. Maybe they feel like, they're good and they don't need Southern California presence and, kind of a mid-major type program. So it's depressing. It's discouraging. I hope, I'm hoping for whatever the best possible outcome could be for the Aztecs. But it would appear that the best possible outcome is just not as enticing, as exciting as it would have been, say 3 months ago.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those what ifs in San Diego sports. Like, what if the Pac-12 stayed together, as we know it, the old Pac-12, and what would have happened there? The stability, if there would have been stability, San Diego State probably going to the Pac-12, and what would have happened to San Diego State and how much it would have grown. I'm not saying it can't stop growing now, but it's It's because they were in perfect position, like I said.
Yeah, 100%. The one thing to look out for is, because Pac-12's got this designation where I think they're calling it the Autonomous Five. Like the champion gets into the college football playoff with the expanded field.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the big what if now is like, does that remain? I know there's going to be votes amongst like the playoff committee and that sort of thing. Do they strip that conference of that if that conference isn't sexy enough? But that's like kind of the one glimmer of hope. Like, even if your conference is watered down, if you can somehow maintain that designation, then if San Diego State wins whatever that conference is, you're in the college football playoff.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, just like the NCAA tournament, like that's all you want. That's all you're looking for. And, a conference like Gonzaga, who's, they've dominated it. They have the profile they do, not because of the WCC, but because of what they do in March. And so if that's going to be kind of as soon as like it gets settled where they're going, I feel like that's going to be the next thing we have to watch is, okay, but what tier is this conference on? And do they have a seat at the table? And if they do, then like, doesn't have to be perfect. If you have a seat at the table, that's ultimately the most important thing. I just fear the way that these conferences operate, that if they see a smaller fish, they're going to be like, I don't know if you necessarily belong, but hopefully that's not the case.